The iPhone 7 is finally here. And overall, the iPhone 7 is a really impressive smartphone. Performance-wise, the new Apple A10 Fusion chip is just ridiculous. In Geekbench alone, it actually scored higher than a 2.3 GHz Haswell Intel i7 quad-core processor. That's insane. It's also much more powerful than the A9X chip that's inside the iPad Pro 9.7 inch. So yeah, performance-wise, the iPhone 7 is the most powerful phone on the planet right now. The cameras have also been improved. They're much better in low light than before. The 7 Plus now comes with a brand new dual camera module, and you actually get 2x optical zoom on the iPhone 7 Plus. It's also water resistant, and the battery life is also much better than before, so there's actually a lot of reasons to upgrade to the iPhone 7. Now, there are a couple of small things and small details that you probably don't know about when it comes to the iPhone 7, some of which might actually change your mind when it comes to buying one. So, hey everyone, welcome to the Zone of Tech. I'm Daniel, and here's my in-depth list of not 7, not 10, not 20, but actually 30 things you probably didn't know about the iPhone 7 that might actually change your mind, again, when it comes to buying one. Enjoy. Okay, so number one, probably not many of you know that the iPhone 7 is actually more expensive now in Europe and also the UK, especially the UK. So in the UK, actually, all Apple products are more expensive now, and this is a direct effect of Brexit. Apple had to adjust the prices because the pound is slightly weaker now. So for example, a 32GB iPhone 7 in the UK is now £600. This is a price increase from £540. The 128GB iPhone 7 is £700, up from £620, and the iPhone 7 Plus now starts at £720, up from $620. So that's a massive £100 price increase. So if you don't want to upgrade to the iPhone 7, now is actually a pretty good time to get the iPhone 6s because it's cheaper now, $100 cheaper, and it also comes in 32 as the baseline model and 128GB. Number two, speaking of things that are more expensive now, all the iPhone accessories are also more expensive now. So for example, the leather cases are £45 now, up from $35, and the smart battery case for the iPhone 7 is £100, up from $80. So that's a pretty big £20 increase. And again, if you're planning on buying all these accessories for the iPhone 7, the leather case, the smart battery case, well, they would increase the price of the already increased price of the iPhone 7 even more. Number three, most of you probably don't know about this either. The displays on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, well, the contrast ratio on the iPhone 7 Plus is actually lower than on the iPhone 7. So the iPhone 7 comes with a contrast ratio of 1400:1, and the iPhone 7 Plus has 1300:1, so quite a bit lower than the iPhone 7. Number four, another reason why you might think twice before buying an iPhone 7 is in terms of the display resolution. It's basically the same as before. So on the iPhone 7, we have 1334 by 750, which translates to a PPI of 326. And on the iPhone 7 Plus, we have 1920 by 1080, so full 1080p, which translates to a PPI of 401. Now back in 2010, Apple launched something really interesting, the iPhone 4 with a Retina display.
Something we call the Retina display.
At that time, that was the highest PPI or pixel density on any display out there, 326 PPI, which according to Steve Jobs, that was the limit of the human retina.
Is the limit of the human retina.
Now this is partially true because if you hold your iPhone at arm's length and then you hold something else like a Galaxy S7 which comes with a Quad HD display, you won't actually be able to tell the difference when scrolling through the menus. However, if you look at them closer and you're viewing images, high resolution images or videos, things will be much sharper, insanely sharper on a Quad HD display. Now that the iPhone 7 shoots 4K videos, and by the way you can do this with the iPhone 6s as well, while the difference when viewing such a 4K video on a phone screen is going to be even greater than before. So yeah, if you care about watching lots of high resolution media on your iPhone, either get the iPhone 7 Plus because it comes with a 1080p display and 401 PPI, or get something else that comes, for example, with a Quad HD display, and the images and videos are going to be much sharper. Number five, another reason why you should think twice before getting the iPhone 7 is in terms of VR. So yeah, obviously the main reason for this is again the screen resolution. So in case you haven't tried VR before, it basically works like this. On any VR device, whether it's the Oculus or the Vive or the Gear VR, you have a display and then you have two lenses that magnify everything that's on that display, and basically with each eye you would get half the resolution of that display. The retina in your eyes can supposedly detect up to 74 megapixels quality. A 1080p display is basically 1 megapixel. The iPhone 7's display would be 360p, so yeah, 360p compared to 74 megapixels. That's a huge difference. Yeah, the pixels are like tennis balls. And then a second reason why I shouldn't get an iPhone for VR is because there's no actual VR headset made specifically for the iPhone. The only one that you can try right now is the Google Cardboard, but even that one is pretty weak because you have a lot of motion blur. If you really want to do mobile VR, get the S7 Edge or the S7. The S7 Edge comes with a 334 PPI display, and you can also get the Gear VR, which is by far the best mobile VR headset on the market right now. And yeah, not even that display, a 534 PPI display, almost double what we have on the iPhone 7, and even that one would be enough for VR. For HD VR, you would need about 800 PPI plus, so yeah. Number 6, another thing that you probably didn't know when it comes to the iPhone 7 is in terms of the front-facing camera. So you probably know that now we have a much higher resolution front-facing camera, 7 megapixel one versus the 5 megapixel one that we had before. This is actually higher resolution than the S7, the S7 Edge, and the Note 7. So yeah, in terms of the resolution, the iPhone 7's front-facing camera is king. However, what you probably don't know is that it actually uses the exact same aperture as on the iPhone 6s. So an f2.2 aperture, which wasn't the best when it came to low light. So for example, this came from an iPhone 6s front-facing camera, f2.2 aperture, and this one came from the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, which comes with an f1.7 aperture. And yeah, the difference in low light is just insane. Number 7, also in terms of the front-facing camera, the video quality has now been bumped from 720p up to 1080p, and that's awesome. But even 1080p is still far behind our smartphones that can now record in 1440p and even higher with a front-facing camera. Now for 4K on the front-facing camera, you would actually need more than 8.3 megapixels because that's the size of 4K video. But still, with a 7 megapixel sensor, you can record 1440p videos. So I have no idea why Apple has enabled this. They might do this with a software update, although I honestly don't see this happening because otherwise they would have mentioned this at the event. Number 8, on the iPhone 7 Plus, we have the dual camera module, and one of its key selling points, one of its key features is the bokeh effect that you can do with that. So this really nice looking background blur, this is a software tweak. It uses both lenses to create that bokeh effect. However, this won't be available at launch. So when you get an iPhone 7 Plus at launch, you won't have this feature enabled. Now, Apple said that they will release an update to bring this feature on the 7 Plus in the future. Hopefully this will come by the end of the year. But yeah, it's quite disappointing to see that one of the iPhone 7 Plus's key selling features will be absent at launch. Number 9, no micro SD card expansion, and this is both a good and a bad thing. So quite a lot of Android smartphones do come with a micro SD card slot, and this is really good because, for example, you can get a 32GB phone and then buy a 64GB micro SD card really cheap, and then increase your storage cheaply. However, what's bad about this is that micro SD cards, they have a lower I/O rate than the internal storage, so lower read and write speeds. So this means that having a micro SD card will make your phone much slower, or at least the apps that you have stored on the micro SD card, they will open much slower than on the internal storage. Next up, number 10, and yeah, just had our haircuts in the middle of the video. How awesome is that? But yeah, number 10, let's talk about water resistancy. So most of you probably know that the iPhone 7s are now water resistant. Their ingress protection level is IP67, and in case you don't know what that means, well, 6 means that they're full dust resistant, and 7 means that you can submerge them in water up to 1 meter, up to 30 minutes. Now, these are not the first smartphones to be water resistant. A lot of other smartphones have already been water resistant for years, and the iPhone 7s actually are one of the last few water resistant smartphones so you have an IP67 water resistance rating. Many other water resistant smartphones like Xperia smartphones and the ones from Samsung have an IP68 water resistance rating, and the 8 means up to 1.5 meter of water up to 30 minutes, so just a bit better than 7. Now, if you go on Apple's website, you can actually see that Apple doesn't say anything about submerging the iPhone 7s in water. They only say that it's splash resistant, so yeah, they don't encourage you to use this underwater. Also, there's no liquid repellent coating on the motherboard or nano coating, which means that only the ports on the inside are sealed, so if any water gets inside the ports and onto the motherboard, well, the phone will be pretty much dead. This, by the way, applies to the S7, the S7 Edge, and the Note 7, in case you're wondering. So if water resistancy was the number one reason why you were getting an iPhone 7, well, you should probably change your mind. Also, speaking of water resistancy, number 11, you probably didn't know this one, but water damage, and it actually says on Apple's website, water damage is not covered by the warranty. So if your iPhone breaks because water got into the inside, well, you won't be getting a new phone, unfortunately. Number 12, you probably know that the iPhone 7 doesn't come with a headphone jack at all. Now, the not so bad news about this is that inside the box, you do get both Lightning headphones and the 3.5mm headphone jack to Lightning adapter. However, keep in mind that only the iPhones and, well, iOS devices, only they have a Lightning port. So basically the headphones that you get inside the box, you won't be able to use those with anything apart from iOS devices that have a Lightning port. So you won't be able to use those on your laptop, you won't be able to use those on anything other than iOS devices that have a Lightning port. Now, the other option is to use the adapter that's included in the box, the 3.5mm headphone jack adapter, so you can pretty much use any headphones, any old headphones you want with that adapter. But yeah, you do need to have your own 3.5mm headphones because yeah, they don't come bundled inside the box. But if you're like me and use multiple devices every single day, like a laptop, a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, which does come with a 3.5mm headphone jack, and an iPhone 7, which doesn't, then having that adapter with you at all times is a must. Hopefully you won't lose it. Another reason why not to get the iPhone 7 is because of fast charging. So this is not usually an issue with the iPhone 7 with the smaller model, because it does have a pretty small battery, so it doesn't take too long to charge. However, the iPhone 7 Plus does take up to 3 full hours to fully charge, and that's way too much. The S7 Edge, for example, which comes with a much larger 3600 mAh battery versus 2900 that the iPhone 7 Plus comes with, it only takes 1 hour and 40 minutes to fully charge with fast charging. That's a very big difference. Now, one solution to this is to actually buy an iPad charger. By using the iPad charger, you can actually charge the iPhone 7 Plus in just 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's a massive improvement. However, you do have to buy this obviously separately, and you'll end up paying more for something which should have been included inside the box in the first place. Next up, we have wireless charging. So a lot of Android smartphones have wireless charging, and the iPhone 7 does not. Now, at the moment, wireless charging is still far behind what you would call actual wireless charging. And that's because, well, one, you need a charging pad, which you do have to buy separately, by the way. Then two, you need to plug this in, and most wireless charging pads don't come with an adapter included, so you have to use your charging brick from your phone. And three, you do have to place your phone onto that pad. So in the end, the only advantage that you do get are those 2 to 3 seconds from not having to plug the micro USB cable into your phone. And also the charge time is much longer than by simply using the brick, the power brick. Now, some people prefer using this in the car because it's actually really convenient to just have a charging pad in your car and then just place your phone onto that pad whenever it needs charging. So if you're that type of person, unfortunately the iPhone 7 doesn't support this. Number 16, let's talk about low light photography. So the iPhone 7 did indeed get quite a ton of improvements when it comes to low light. The aperture has been improved. We now get a larger aperture, f1.8 from f2.2 that the iPhone 6s came with. Then the actual size of the sensor has also been increased. We now have a 1/2.6 inches sensor versus 1/3 inches that we had with the iPhone 6s. And now, since the sensor is larger, the pixels themselves inside the sensor also larger. So now the pixel size is 1.35 microns versus 1.22. However, if you compare all this with the Samsung Galaxy S7 and the Note 7, those phones actually have an f1.7 aperture, so slightly larger than the f1.8 on the iPhone 7. And then the actual sensor and the pixel size are also larger on the S7 and the Note 7. But at least on paper, Samsung's phones look slightly better in low light than the iPhone 7. Now, the iPhone 7 also comes with a brand new ISP or image signal processor, and the image processing on the iPhone has always been one of the best. So in the end, the iPhone 7 might still outperform the S7 and the S7 Edge. Also, speaking of low light, number 17, the iPhone 7 Plus, at least on paper, it looks slightly worse in low light than the iPhone 7. So the iPhone 7 comes with an f1.8 aperture, and the iPhone 7 Plus actually comes with two lenses. One of them is a telephoto lens, and the other one is a wide-angle lens. The wide-angle lens comes with an f1.8 aperture, so same as on the iPhone 7, and a telephoto lens actually comes with an f2.8 aperture. So that's a pretty big difference between the two lenses, especially in low light. Now, in terms of the actual sensor size, 1/2.6 inches on the iPhone 7, and apparently on the iPhone 7 Plus, we actually have two separate sensors for each of the lenses. So for the wide-angle lens, we have 1/3 inches, so same as on the iPhone 6s, and for the telephoto lens, we have 1/3.6 inches. So again, a pretty big difference between the two lenses in low light of the iPhone 7 Plus, and also between those two phones, at least on paper, the iPhone 7 looks much better in low light. The dual camera module in the iPhone 7 Plus is made by Link Technology, and they actually have a patent on how to reduce image noise by combining two images taken from those two separate sensors, and this is how the noise reduction would look like. However, Apple actually hasn't said anything about this at their event. It's most likely not as good as they wanted it to be. But regardless, I'll be doing an in-depth camera test between the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus as soon as I get my hands on them, which is actually this Friday. So feel free to subscribe for an in-depth camera coverage on these two phones. Another reason why you might not want to get the new iPhones are in terms of the actual sizes of those two phones. So you probably know that the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus, they look exactly the same dimension-wise, exactly the same like the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6s. And they have some pretty huge bezels. So just to give you an idea, the iPhone 7 Plus, well, this is a massive phone, and I know it comes with a 5.5 inches display. However, if you compare the iPhone 6s versus something like the S7 Edge, the difference in size is just ridiculous. And keep in mind that the S7 Edge also comes with the exact same screen size, a 5.5 inches display, and the iPhone 6s Plus is just massive when compared to the S7 Edge. Now, those large bezels are needed because of the home button's shape. On the iPhones, we have a round home button instead of the rectangular one that we have on Samsung devices, for example. So it does take more space on the bottom, and then we also need a matching top bar. However, the iPhone 8, the iPhone that's coming next year, because it's not going to be the iPhone 7s, by the way, so the iPhone 8 is supposedly going to drop the home button entirely, and then the bezels are going to be much thinner than on the iPhone 7 and 6 and 6s. By the way, in case you want to know more about the iPhone 8, about next year's iPhone, I actually did a very in-depth video just on this and all the leaks and rumors and on everything we currently know about the next year's iPhone. Number 19, this is probably the one that I should have started with. The iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus, they look exactly the same as the 6s and the 6s Plus, which looked exactly the same as the 6 and the 6 Plus. Yes, we do get some brand new colors. We get a matte black, and we also get a jet black, which looks really awesome. So if you did enjoy the iPhone 6 and 6s design, then you'll also enjoy the iPhone 7, especially with some new colors. However, I personally got bored of it, and the only design differences that we are getting with the iPhone 7 are in terms of the antenna lines that are now going away, again, the new colors, and yeah, the headphone jack is also gone. But if you care about the design, in my opinion, the best looking phone on the market right now is the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. And by the way, this video is not sponsored by Samsung or Apple or anyone. At number 20, if you really like that jet black color option, the glossy black, well, that thing, even though it looks really awesome, it's a fingerprint magnet, and Apple actually states on their website that this thing will scratch, and they actually suggest you to wear a case with it. So yeah, judging by this thing will indeed scratch like crazy. And also the jet black color option is unfortunately exclusive to the 128 and 256GB models. And by the way, let me know in the comments which color option do you think looks the best, matte black or this glossy new jet black. 21, we have the RAM. So this is a pretty interesting topic. You probably know that on the iPhone 7 we have 2GB of RAM, so same as on the iPhone 6s. And then on the iPhone 7 Plus, we have 3GB of RAM. In terms of fluidity and performance, the iPhone is already the best option on the market right now. And no, you don't actually need 4GB of RAM on an iPhone just because iOS is really well optimized. And in case you're curious, I actually did a video just on this. I compared multiple smartphones with different amounts of RAM, 4GB, 2GB on the iPhone 6s, and 1GB on the iPhone 6. And the king was actually not the phone with 4GB, but the iPhone 6s with 2GB of RAM. So yeah, when it comes to RAM management, 2GB is more than enough in iOS. However, if you want a phone that will last you more and that will give you more iOS updates in the future, then the iPhone 7 Plus is a much better option. And the reason why this is number 21, reason not to get the iPhone 7, is because you're kind of forced to get the iPhone 7 Plus or the iPhone 7 if you really care about the amount of RAM. And the iPhone 7 Plus is a pretty huge device, so yeah, it's not for everyone. Next up, number 22 is actually getting the iPhone in the first place. So the pre-orders have already gone live. However, if you want to get an iPhone on launch day, well, almost all models are now out of stock. Some are even out of stock until November, so yeah, that's a pretty long time to wait. And the more you wait, the more difficult it would be to get your hands on an iPhone 7. So yeah, if you really need a new phone right now, then the iPhone 7 is not the one that you'll be able to buy straight away, unless you've already pre-ordered. 23, we have the actual display technology. So the iPhone 7, just like every single other iPhone model before it, still uses an LCD display. Apple's only going to switch to OLED next year with the iPhone 8. This year we still have an LCD display. The main difference between an LCD and an OLED is that on LCD displays, the pixels only give the color, and for the brightness for the pixels to actually light up, you need a backlight as well. On OLED displays, the pixels give both the color and the brightness. So for example, you can have something like a black background with a white text in the middle, and the black will be perfectly black on OLED. However, on LCD, it would be more of like a grayish bluish version because those pixels would still be turned on. OLED also consumes much less energy than LCD just because of this, because you can actually have just a few pixels turned on the display at the same time. And you can also have things like an always on display like we have on the S7 and the S7 Edge and the Note 7, something that you cannot do on LCD displays. I mean, you can, but they obviously consume more energy. But yeah, with OLED, you also get infinite contrast, perfect blacks. However, LCD displays, especially the ones that Apple uses, on the iPhone 7, we have a DCI-P3 display, so this is actually perfect for photographers, for example, because it's more color accurate, and you don't actually get those oversaturated colors that you would do with an OLED display. 24, we have customizability. So if you're the kind of person that really likes to customize their phone, then iOS is definitely not for you. On Android, you can change your lock screen, you can add widgets to your home screen, you can add a custom launcher, or hey, you can even add a custom ROM and make your phone look and perform entirely different. On iPhone, you can only change the background and you can only rearrange the folders. Other than that, if you want more changes, you'll have to jailbreak. And jailbreaking is actually getting tougher and tougher every single day, especially now since Apple has been patching exploits like crazy. So if you care about customizability, if you care about making your phone your own, then definitely go with Android. 25, another reason why you might not want to get the iPhone 7 is in terms of Apple's ecosystem. So Apple's ecosystem is actually the best ecosystem on the market right now. If you have an iPad, if you have an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and a Mac, everything works flawlessly. However, if you don't have a Mac, then on Windows you can still have iCloud Photos, for example. However, it's not as well optimized as it is on Mac. So if you want to use every single one of the iPhone's features at its max with no flaws, with no glitches, then the best way is to have a Mac as well. And the same goes for smartwatches. So now Android Wear, by the way, also works with iOS. However, if you do want to get the best experience, you do need an Apple Watch. And if you don't want to invest in all these Apple products, or if you've been using Google services all the time, even though you can use most of them on Apple devices, they're usually released to Android first, and some features such as swiping to access Google Now, for example, are strictly restricted to Android. I'm obviously talking about the Google Now launcher here. 26, we have the battery life. So on the iPhone 7, we do actually get better battery life than on the iPhone 6s. So up up to 2 extra hours on the iPhone 7 versus the 6S, and up to 1 extra hour on the iPhone 7 Plus versus the 6S Plus. Now for me personally, the battery life on the iPhone 6S is pretty bad, so I'm a pretty heavy user and there's no way I can make it through a full day of usage. With the iPhone 6S Plus and the iPhone 7 Plus, yes, you can make it through a full day of usage. However, again, you're kind of forced to buy the bigger model. On the other hand, and again, this video is not sponsored by Samsung, on Samsung devices, the S7 already has a crazy battery life, and even to mention the S7 Edge. And on top of this, you also have that ultra power saving mode, which makes the display black and white and disables most of the features. And because it's an AMOLED display, well, this thing in ultra power saving mode can actually last you for more than a week. That's crazy, and it's definitely really useful when you do need this. 27, this might not be that big of an issue for most people. However, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 comes with a pretty interesting feature, and that's an iris scanner. And the iPhone 7, even though Apple actually has a patent on this, the iPhone 7 doesn't come with one. So if unlocking your phone with an iris was something that you've always wanted, well, you can only have that on the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, unfortunately. On the iPhone, it might be coming next year with the iPhone 8. And again, if you want to know more about the iPhone 8, check out my full video here. 28, in terms of the front-facing camera, yes, I did mention this before. We do have a high-resolution 7-megapixel camera up from 5 that we had on the iPhone 6S, and also the video recording has been bumped to 1080p from 720p, so 2 major improvements here. The aperture has stayed the same, which I've already mentioned before. However, the angle of the lens has also stayed the same. So some other smartphones have a much wider viewing angle on the front-facing camera, and you can actually get way more people and way more things in the shot, unlike the iPhone, which has a pretty narrow field of view. However, the not so bad thing about this is that the iPhone doesn't actually create any distortion in the images. 29, if you really like that dual camera module on the iPhone 7 Plus and the battery life and a high resolution display, then you'll probably get the iPhone 7 Plus. However, the iPhone 7 Plus in the end is still a larger iPhone 7. You don't actually get any other functionality other than that dual camera module. On other large smartphones like the Note 7, for example, you do get that S Pen, which does come with quite a lot of functionality. You can take notes with the screen off and even underwater and so on. With the iPhone 7 Plus, in terms of functionality, all you're getting is that dual camera module, which is still a pretty welcome improvement over the iPhone 6S Plus, which only had optical image stabilization versus the 6S. Now we have it on both the 7 and the 7 Plus. But yeah, overall, still not enough differences between the two models. And finally, the last one, number 30. Remember when I said that Apple was actually testing 3 iPhone 7 models? The iPhone 7, the 7 Plus, and the 7 Pro. The 7 Pro came with a dual camera module and a smart connector as well. And in the final version, we do have the dual camera module. However, we don't have the smart connector at all. I was really hoping for some smart accessories, for some smart modules for the iPhone 7 Plus. However, this doesn't seem to be the case. Hopefully next year with the iPhone 8. So if you really wanted something really unique with the iPhone 7, well, unfortunately, you'll have to wait for next year's model. But yeah, let me know in the comments, by the way, if any of you is getting the iPhone 7. If so, which model? And if you're not getting an iPhone 7, then which one of those reasons I mentioned before? Which one is the main reason why you're not getting an iPhone 7? Feel free to subscribe for more iPhone 7 videos. I'll have more iPhone 7 videos soon. Also, if you have enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a huge like. It took quite a while to make, actually a few days, so yeah, all your feedback is really appreciated. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter at ZoneOfTech for more tech updates there as well. And also, don't forget to turn on notifications on my channel on both desktop and mobile. On mobile by simply clicking on the bell icon next to my channel, so that you're notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. And finally, if you've made it to this very end of this video, let me know in the comments by saying I was epic enough to make it to this very end or to the end of this video. But yeah, this was pretty much it for this video. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. ZoneOfTech, signing out. Cheers.